Hello and welcome back to my messy garage. This was a video I was going to save for a rainy day, but instead, well, I'm doing it now. Today we're talking about concrete edging, and this was something I touched on a while ago. I think I did a little bit of a video on it, but I said I needed to learn more and build up my skills before I came back to you guys and said, this is what you can and shouldn't do, that kind of jazz. So first I'm gonna do a little bit of basics. I think generally, and I know I have in the past, we've used the word cement and concrete as the same thing, sort of, just using them in the same context. I have a cement walkway, I have a concrete walkway, but there is actually a difference. Cement is, think of it as the glue that holds all of the aggregate, which can be sand, rocks, pebbles, that kind of thing, together to make concrete. So cement is the glue, concrete is the finished product. So with that being said, let me just touch on the next thing, which is molds. I stumbled across, I think I mentioned this in my previous video that I talked about this, and I'm starting to make my own molds now for concrete edging. The reason I'm doing this is because down here in Eastern North Carolina, growing zone 8B, wood rots down here so quickly. So right now I have wood timbers all around my flower garden. And then again, in a few areas around the garden, I have no edging at all. Now, I could theoretically do the trench method of edging, where you take your spade and you just basically cut a little trench out along your flower bed. I could do that, except I have these, what do they call it? Centipede grass, Bermuda grass, crab grass. I call it garbage, and it grows very quickly down here in the summertime, so I would have to be re-edging all of my edges every, I don't know, week. It just goes like this. In New York, I was doing the cut edging, and I probably once a month I'd go back, do a little touch up, little here and there. And if you keep on top of it, it's fine. But I also didn't have the kind of grass nor the growth of the grass that I have here in Eastern North Carolina. So I needed something that's going to hold up to the elements and last me quite a long time. And I started doing metal edging in the rose garden, and now I'm actually second guessing whether I should continue with that or not. It's the Corten steel. It looks nice, but it is expensive. It is very expensive. To do my whole flower garden in that would just be to finish the rose garden is going to be very cost prohibitive, and to do the flower garden is almost probably talking, I mean, I'm ballparking right now, but maybe $5,000 to $6,000 just to do my entire flower garden, which is astronomical. And I could be short on that number. It could actually be more, because again, the steel Corten edging, at least the brand that I like and I've been buying, is very expensive. So I needed another solution. And one night, stumbling on the internet, I found molds. So plastic molds that you can use to make your own garden edging. And the first one actually I stumbled across was this black one. And this makes this edging. Some of you may have recognized this edging from a YouTube community post I'd put up. I may have touched on it in the other video that I did about the concrete, not sure. FYI, this video, along with any other videos I do with the concrete work, will be in a playlist called Concrete. So if you want to go catch up or watch the whole series, you can, because there'll be other videos on this stuff. Anywho, this is actually dyed. I used a pigment on this, so this is obviously terracotta color, and I'm going to use a bunch of these over in the vegetable garden to edge around certain plants over there, and when I go to do that, I'll bring you guys along for that. And then there's different styles. This one right here, you can see hopefully, has got like a leaf pattern on it. There are some that have various vines, animals. I saw one with fish on it. I thought that was kind of neat. And of course, there's other fun things you could do with concrete. I actually found some molds where you can make some pot feet. So here's an unpainted, what they call a Victorian heart. Things like this will be going up on the Etsy store probably in the next few weeks. I also did some painted frogs. So here's some frog feet. So I did 2 different shades of green, and then I covered them with a high gloss glaze. So they look kind of neat. They too will be going up on the Etsy store. The other thing that I started playing with, and which will show up on the Etsy store hopefully soon, is bunny. These are fun to make. I'm going to have a couple of these in my garden, and over time I'll probably have a few other statuary, because I think the statuary is just something else that adds to the garden. So with all that being said, what we're here for today is I'm going to show you how you too can make your very own edging if you want to add to your garden. Quick note on this edging. This is pretty much all you would see above ground, and there are matching pieces that would go with this to finish the ends. I bought this off of a website. This is not sponsored. History Stones, I believe. There's a couple of different websites. I'm going to list them below in the description, so if you want, you can go check that out and then decide if you actually want to go out and buy your own molds to make your own edging for the garden. And it's just a fun thing to do. And in the wintertime, I think this would be a really fun project to do when you can't go outside due to the snow and that kind of stuff. So this is a nice indoor project. Make yourself a bunch of stones, and then as the weather warms up, you can go outside, stick these into the ground, add a little something to your garden. So enough of that prattling. Let me show you how to prepare your mold, and then we're going to mix some concrete to put in the molds. Here I have what they call the Gothic arch mold. So what you're going to do on the inside of this is you're going to put what they call a mold release, and that's a generic term for a ton of different chemicals and things that basically allow the plastic to separate from the concrete that much easier. My first pour ever, I did not use any mold release. The plastic did release from the concrete. It took a little bit of wiggling and jiggling, but it did. So that was great. But I've learned since that if you do just add a little bit of mold release, then it detaches that much quickly. What I'm using here is just a little bit of vegetable oil that I put into a spray bottle. You don't need to put it into a spray bottle, but the spray bottle sort of helps distribute it a little bit. I've learned from a little bit of experience now that one of the best ways to spread it in this kind of situation where you have some texture is just take a old paintbrush and just use it to sort of paint it into all the textury spots. Real easy, not hard. Then what I like to do is take, and you don't have to use an old paintbrush. Again, this is just what I do. You could just use a paper towel. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe up all of the excess, because all you want is a very, very fine sheen on here. So I'm just wiping this down now. My paper towel is it's soaked up quite a bit of oil. This is okay. I want it to soak up as much oil as possible. The reason being is that when you go to pour, if there's oil left in here, it will create weak spots and blemishes in the concrete, which you don't want. And then you're going to also want to wipe around the edges. Now, it may be showing shiny right now in the camera. I do apologize if it's difficult to see. But that, again, all you want is the finest little sheen on here. And then this will help. In other applications, if you're, say, doing latex, you're going to want to use a different type of mold release, and I can talk more about that in the future. Or if you're doing a silicone, you would do a different type of mold release. But vegetable oil is a safe inert product basically for this. If you Google doing this kind of thing on YouTube, you'll see people use WD-40 or even motor oil. I ran across quite a few videos. Some people in Vietnam who were making cement pots and they were using motor oil, and it's not the end of the world. It's just probably it's not an environmentally safe product, obviously, and vegetable oil is super duper duper cheap. I bought this for like $2, maybe $3, and I've barely used any of it, and I have still quite a bit left over in the spray bottle. So just a little bit goes a very long way. Let's go mix up some concrete to pour into these molds. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to use a 50-pound bag of high-strength concrete. This was the cheapest at my Lowe's. I think this was about $3 a bag. And we're going to see how many molds we can make out of one 50-pound bag. I have 4 molds ready to go. We're going to find out. So I'm just going to bust this open. This is concrete. So it already has pre-mixed into it cement, stone, sand, and maybe even some lime, depends upon the manufacturer and how they formulate their stuff. But as the bag said, this is high strength concrete. Now we get to the fun part, mixing. There's a couple of different ways you can mix it. I'm going to be mixing by hand today. And what you can do is add a little water. Now this is a very, very important part. You don't want very soupy concrete. Just add a little bit more. You can see how dry it is. And if you want, and you probably should, go watch a bunch of other videos, and I'll leave links to a couple of channels that I've been watching below. And they'll talk about mixing the cement, because these are people who have a lot more experience than I do, and how you have to be careful when you're mixing it. Because again, you want to avoid the soup. Water, too much water weakens concrete. Some people will use a hoe to mix the concrete, or power tools, such as a drill with a mixer attachment. So now you can see how it's probably just a little too loose. There's probably just a little too much water in here. But this is okay. If you've worked with concrete before, please leave those messages below. But I think this is going to work for us. Now, as I mentioned a second ago, too much water weakens the concrete. But we're not walking on the edging tiles that we're doing today. So if the bag said 4,000 PSI and your mix is a little too moist, like maybe this is, then maybe you'll only get 3,000 PSI. That's pounds per square inch. We're not walking on the tiles, so this should be just fine. Okay, now for the fun part. So I have 4 oiled molds ready to go. So we're gonna take some, and we're gonna ladle it in. This is important. You wanna start shaking and vibrating it into place. So you can see my mold isn't that full. I'm gonna start tapping it. If you don't do this step, what's gonna happen is your finished piece is gonna look like this. So it's very important, and start vibrating it or tapping it. And it's gonna start releasing air bubbles because there's air in the concrete. And it's easiest to do when it's only a quarter to half full. And then you can finish filling the mold. If you want, stop periodically. Give it a shake, a tap. Word of note, this plastic isn't the thickest in the world. It's not really thin, but it's not super thick. So really be careful when you're handling the edges here because they can break and snap. The other thing you can do is just tap along the edges. Here are some of the air bubbles that I was just mentioning. And if we tap, you might see some of them starting to rise up. Another scoop or two. Grab my next one. Okay, so there's only a little left in the mixing bowl here, in the mixing container. So there's not enough to do a 4th mold. But I will show you what I do with that little extra bit. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you could use those pot feet molds. to make some pot feet. If you have another small mold, you can do that. One of the things I like to do, I like to put it in these little cheap bowls that I got from IKEA. I think there was like $1 for like 6 bowls. Doesn't have to be perfect. There we go. Shaking it down. And in the end, what I will get is a product like this. And I can use this as a pot foot. So I can put it underneath pots to elevate them off the ground. I could use this to hold as a weight to hold down weed fabric. And you guys have seen where I use weed fabric around the yard. So it's just, you're not really wasting the concrete, but you are going to put it to some use. You can see all the air bubbles because I did not vibrate this. But again, for what this is going to be used for, it's perfectly fine. And now for the most important part, cleanup. Now I just cleaned out, obviously I cleaned my tool and I cleaned out the trough here. And yeah, I just dumped whatever little excess was right here. It's really not going to impact the grass here because my grass, it grows through stone. So I'm not really worried about that. Also, there's gravel underneath all this grass here, so I'm really not impacting this area. But you probably don't want to do this on your driveway if you like your driveway, or maybe out in the street. That, you know, may not be a good thing. So, but if you can find a good place to clean this out, maybe in a corner of your yard or something along those lines, then by all means, just go ahead, give you this. You just want to make sure that you give this a rinse. Do want to touch a second on the tools I used today. This trough here, this is $8 from Lowe's. This is really cheap. You can probably find it the same price at Home Dopey. You could also mix this in a wheelbarrow. If you have a wheelbarrow you don't mind washing out, that's up to you. For smaller batches, I have this little bucket, this little pail here. I think I also got this from IKEA for like $1, but you can go to probably a Dollar General or Dollar Store and pick up something similar to mix your cement in. And then last but not least, I bought this little, oh God, why am I drawing a trowel? I bought this little trowel. No, I'm getting old. Birthday's in like a week or so. This is not good. But I bought this little trowel off of, I think it came as a 2-pack off of Amazon for like $10, $13, something like that. So as long as I keep washing it and taking care of it, it'll last me hopefully for quite a few years. And that was really it. I hand mixed it. I didn't go out and spend a lot of money on tools and things like that. You don't need to spend a whole lot of money. The molds I used today range $20 or so. I think I got a 4-pack for $60 from, again, History Stones. I'll leave those links below. But one of those plastic molds, if you do take care of it, should last you many, 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 many pourings. But you have to take care of it, and you have to clean out your molds when you're done. And I just mentioned a second ago about cleaning out your molds, and here's a good example of a mold that I have not cleaned out. You may see some red residue in there, and that is from the concrete that I poured in there. And if I go ahead and pour into this mold again, and again, let me see if I can find you a good spot here, maybe on the upper edge, if that'll focus. Yeah, there we go. See all that red residue right there? If I went ahead and poured mix into this today, what's going to happen is that it's going to leave indentations into the new pour, and then when you release it may not release as smoothly, or when you do release it, you'll have little divots in your piece there. And you really don't want that. You want your molds, your pieces to look as nicely as possible. If you live in a northern climate, I would suggest highly that you seal your concrete. And all that does is, because even when concrete is dry, it's still a porous material. So if you have a concrete walkway or a concrete driveway and you ever see it get wet and then it just sort of evaporates, that's not, part of that is water evaporating off the surface, but part of it is the concrete just soaking up that moisture. So you want to seal your concrete, and the reason being, in the mainly northern climates where you can get freezes and hard freezes, is water will get in between in the little nooks and crannies, and eventually ice expands, cracks your concrete. It may just be a little chip or divot, but over time it could be something significantly more. So you're going to want to seal your concrete, and there's tons of videos about that, and I'll probably do a video about that in the future. And here's one of the pieces that we did yesterday. Just gently tug on the edges. All right, and then we're going to flip it over gently. And just like that, because we had done the oiling, it's popped right out. and I only see 2, maybe 3 little air bubbles. So I did a good job vibrating this. I think I've bored you guys enough. If you found this video useful, or if you like this video, please hit the like button and hit that subscribe button, because I'll be doing more videos about this in the future. It's not the main focus of the channel. The channel is gardening, but I'm building pieces to go out into the garden. And again, I'll be showing you guys me putting in the edging and where I'm putting in the edging, and hopefully what that will look like in the future. I hope. With all that being said, I'm going to catch you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.